Beneath the polished ceremonial dais, the floor vibrated. It was the rhythmic, asymmetrical clicking of the threshold Nexus atmospheric scrubbers working overtime. Archon Kale tracked the vibration through his heavy combat boots. He adjusted his grip on his ceremonial polearm. His primary eyes remained locked on the sealed airlock door. The Sol Union delegation stepped through. Kale cataloged them instantly. Bipedal, soft-skinned, unarmored. Their kinetic signatures were low, chaotic, entirely unrefined. They moved like prey trying to project apex confidence in a predator's den. At their center stood Elias Thorne. Kale narrowed his secondary optics, processing the human's visual data. The diplomat wore a tailored uniform, clearly meant to project structural authority. But Kale noticed a single, frayed gold thread on the left cuff. A micro-imperfection. It told Kale everything he needed to know. These humans were stretched thin, desperate for this treaty. Empress Lyra sat upon the resonance throne. The floating crystal above her cast fragmented blue light across the neutral chamber. This was the resonance shard. It hummed with dormant power, waiting to record the proceedings. This was supposed to be a standard integration protocol. The Athelian hegemony absorbing a lesser, desperate species. Routine. Then Elias Thorne took a step forward. Lyra stood up. The entire Athelian honor guard tensed. Protocol dictated the Empress remained seated until the lesser species knelt in submission. Lyra didn't wait. She bypassed the crystalline barrier entirely. She walked directly down the stone steps. I'll be honest with you. What I saw that day changed everything I thought I knew about the hegemony's bloodlines. Stay with me. Lyra stopped inches from the human. The chamber fell utterly silent. The scrubbers clicked beneath their feet. You are late, the Empress whispered. Kale's auditory receptors flared. The translation matrix in his helmet struggled with the syntax. She wasn't using diplomatic high Athelian. She was using the old tongue, the ancient dialect of soul recognition. I have seen your face in the waking dreams for 6 orbital cycles, Lyra announced. Her voice resonated through the acoustic dampeners, thick with absolute certainty. The prince consort has arrived. Kale gripped his weapon. The human delegation froze. Elias Thorne blinked. He looked back over his shoulder at his own security detail, seeking a tactical explanation. A life partner claim on first contact. It defied all logic. They were different species, different biology entirely. Yet the Empress looked at him with absolute, terrifying familiarity. The partial truth hung in the heavy air of the chamber. There was a connection here. Something deeper and far more dangerous than diplomacy. The human diplomat slowly raised a hand. A cautious gesture of placation. Your Grace, I believe there is a misunderstanding. He stepped forward to gently press his bare palm against her outstretched fingertips. The reaction was instantaneous. Blue light detonated between them. A visible, jagged arc of bioelectric energy snapped from Lyra's skin directly into Elias's hand. The hum of the resonance shard above the throne spiked into a deafening, physical whine. The floating crystal spun violently. It fractured the room in strobing, blinding light. Kale's combat instincts overrode his diplomatic conditioning. He lunged forward. The Sol Union security detail drew their kinetic sidearms. Weapons locked on targets across the chamber in a split second. Commander Marcus Drax aimed his heavy rifle squarely at Kale's chest plating. But Elias didn't pull away from the Empress. He couldn't. Kale watched the raw energy coil up the human's arm. That frayed gold thread on his cuff incinerated in a flash of heat. But the human wasn't burning. His soft physiology was absorbing the resonant harmonics, drinking the raw power in without breaking. Kale's tactical display fed him live, impossible telemetry. The bioelectric signatures of the two distinct species weren't clashing. They were syncing, harmonizing on a deep, molecular level, which meant the genetic lock wasn't built to keep humans out. It was built. Kale cut the thought off. Heresy. Before the humans could fire a single round, Matriarch Solari struck her staff against the dais. 3 ringing, hollow blows. The Athelian council members dropped to their knees in unison. They didn't draw weapons. They lowered their heads and began the low, guttural chant of the unity ritual. Elias finally severed the physical connection. He staggered back, chest heaving. He looked down at his shaking hand. The skin beneath his fingernails glowed with fading blue pathways. "What did you do to me?" Elias demanded. His voice was tight, stripped of all diplomatic veneer. Lyra smiled. "I woke you up." Drax grabbed Elias hard by the shoulder armor. "We're leaving. Now." Protocol is compromised. But the massive blast doors of the threshold nexus groaned. Not opening. Sealing shut. Red emergency lighting washed over the chamber. It swallowed the blue glow of the shard. Kale tapped his internal comms bead. "Report. Vanguard sensors detect 60 slip-space ruptures on the station perimeter." The tactical officer's voice cracked over the channel. "The abyssal swarm. They tracked the human fleet." Panic rippled through the human ranks. Kale calculated the combat odds instantly. 60 swarm vessels against the station's minimal neutral defenses. It was a slaughter, unless the humans fought back. Elias didn't run for the sealed doors with his security detail. He turned slowly toward the massive, pedal-shaped Athelian command interface resting at the center of the room. A machine strictly forbidden to outsiders. A machine that required highly specific genetic markers to even illuminate. It was already glowing blue, waiting for his touch. Kale watched the impossible happen. The pedal-shaped command interface blossomed under human hands. Elias Thorne didn't just activate it. He sank into it. The blue light crawled up the human's forearms, mapping itself along his veins in intricate geometric patterns. Kale expected the human to scream in agony. He expected the fragile mammalian nervous system to boil under the sheer output of the hegemony's oldest technology. Instead, Elias let out a long, steady breath. The cuff of his uniform was singed black where that frayed gold thread used to be, the smell of burnt fabric hanging heavy in the sterile air. Before Elias could pull back, the Vanguard's external sensors screamed. The pitch of the alarm was a high, mechanical shriek that vibrated in Kale's dental plates. A massive Soul Union dreadnought, bristling with heavy kinetic cannons, dropped out of slipspace directly above the neutral station. Admiral Silas Cray had arrived. He had brought the entire heavy fleet. The neutral chamber's open comms crackled to life with a burst of static. "Athelian Council, this is Admiral Cray." The voice boomed, thick with unearned authority and the metallic distortion of long-range transmission. "Relinquish control of your defensive grid and surrender your energy technology. Do this immediately, or we will classify you as hostile alongside the swarm." The arrogance was staggering. The station was already shaking. The swarm was seconds away from hull contact. The atmospheric scrubbers beneath Kale's boots began to whine, a sickening metallic grinding sound as they strained against the sudden pressure drops in the outer docking rings. The enemy was breaching the perimeter. Commander Drax leveled his weapon at Kale, completely misreading the immediate threat. Kale checked his tactical overlay. 60 ships against the swarm. If the resonant harmonics failed now, he forced the thought down quickly. He tightened his grip on his polearm. He prepared to die defending a human who was currently glowing with hegemony power, surrounded by other humans who wanted to kill him. Matriarch Solari stepped forward. She did not raise her voice. She did not activate a personal deflector shield. She simply looked up at the visual feed of the human dreadnought. "You threaten your own blood, Admiral," she stated calmly. The translation matrix broadcast her words to the entire human fleet. The silence on the comms was immediate. "We are not an alien empire," Solari continued, her voice echoing off the curved walls. "We are the survivors of the Ark 7. Kale's primary respiratory vents locked open. The air tasted suddenly thin. The Ark 7. The mythical seed ship lost during the first expansion, a fairy tale taught to Athelian spawn in the incubation pools. The realization crashed through the honor guard. It cascaded through Kale's processing centers, recontextualizing every single anomaly he had witnessed. The genetic locks on the command interface. The bioelectric syncing between the Empress and the diplomat. The old tongue Lyra had spoken. It wasn't an absorption of a lesser, primitive species. It was a family reunion. Cray went dead silent. Elias didn't hesitate. He ignored the Admiral. He pushed his glowing hands deeper into the console's core. The ancient machine recognized him. It welcomed him. Channeling the raw, molecular reshaping power of the ancient seed ship's core through his own fragile nervous system, Elias forcibly bridged the targeting computers of the Athelian energy ships with the brutal kinetic batteries of the Sol Union heavy dreadnoughts. The station shuddered as the massive uplink completed. Elias dropped to one knee, blood dripping from his nose, but his hands remained locked on the interface. Empress Lyra knelt beside him. She didn't try to pull him away. She placed her hands over his, adding her own bioelectric signature to the current, stabilizing his heart rate. "Hold them together, Prince Consort," she commanded softly. Elias gritted his teeth, his eyes glowing entirely blue, mapping firing solutions across 1,000,000 kilometers of space using nothing but instinct and ancestral memory. The human security team lowered their weapons, watching their diplomat command a star fleet with his bare hands. The result was absolute devastation. Outside the massive viewing ports, the void of space erupted into violence. The swarm, a terrifying mass of organic ships with jagged chitinous plating and writhing tendrils, met a wall of unified fire. Blue Athelian energy expanded outward, shielding the fragile human hulls from the corrosive acid spit of the abyssal vessels. In return, human kinetic rounds, now coated in volatile resonant plasma from the hegemony ships, tore through the swarm's organic armor like wet paper. Kale watched the tactical display turn into a graveyard of abyssal ships in a matter of minutes. It was a flawless, terrifying synthesis. The humans provided the blunt, unpredictable intuition and aggressive velocity. The Athelians provided the limitless energy and structural shielding to fuel it. Hybrid warfare at its absolute peak. Two halves of a broken, separated species fighting as one cohesive mind against the darkness. 6 orbital cycles later, warm winds swept across the Athelian homeworld. The resonance shard hovered above the grand balcony, no longer a recording device for sterile treaties, but a pulsing monument to reunification. Beneath its gentle blue light, Elias Thorne and Empress Lyra stood side by side with their hands entwined. Two separate histories had finally found their way back to a single shared future.